on outside approval makes me vulnerable. It puts me at risk, and this is how I can be manipulated. Whether it be, scammers use this fear of not being approved of to get us to do things that have um, mixed consequences for us, whether it be the emails about a Nigerian prince or whether someone's running for president of the United States. It's all the same thing to identify with us and that we're okay, even in terms of someone understanding my grievances is a form of approval. So that's the story that we're all familiar with, is that's what's on the outside. But more importantly is, how do I meet that? What's the thing that I can do? What's my how to? This is what appeals to me, is the how to. Approval on the outside, self-esteem on the inside. So what is self-esteem? Well, just think of the word approval first. I like words. Approval originally just comes from the Latin to prove. It means I have proved who I am, what I'm doing, that it's right. It's proof that I'm valid. Self-esteem or self-worth, as it was written in the lead-in to this talk, first I have to know what the self is. I got to get to know myself. How do I get to know myself? Well, this is where the real process of transformation takes place in one, is by this step number one, gentle observation, just the gentle observation of myself. We have this continuous stimulus and response that's going on in the world. Every day in your life, there's stimulus every moment, and I have a response to it. Self-worth or self-esteem comes in knowing how to guide this dynamic between stimulus and response. Stimulus, response, and notice there's a space in between. And this is the place where the self is, where I get to think, I get to choose how I respond to any given situation. And the first part of that, so I don't react all the time, because I'm always reacting out of my emotions. And, I had just recently read by a famous doctor that 90% of our emotions are based upon past experience. 90% of our emotions are based upon past experiences. So that's a lot of momentum of the past guiding me, leading me, leaning on me to react in a similar way that I've always reacted to. And if that reaction is not satisfactory or successful or having a good result, it's going to continue to go on through my life. And so this whole idea of finding the space between stimulus and response, this is where my self-esteem gets its growth. It starts right in there. And it's as simple as it's a lot of steps to it. But the first part is just to observe. For instance, I don't know how it is there, but I live in Florida in the United States, and traffic is always a problem. And there's this term called road rage, and people getting very upset with the driving. But take just a simple one, like I'm going to make a right turn, and the lights red, 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 and then it turns green, and maybe a car, 4 or 5 cars ahead of you, is busy texting. And so they're not seeing it. And then somehow they get going right away and they make it through, but no one else after them makes it through. And so that was my stimulus. What is my response? What is my response to that stimulus? Well, if you're like me, maybe a little bit of agitation. And then I say, well, maybe I shouldn't have been agitated, but right away I'm justifying why I got agitated at that person is because they weren't paying attention. They should know better, blah, 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 blah. When instead, I could just say, I didn't get through. And here I am in this moment. So the momentum of all those 90% of my emotions being related to a past, whether it's that or another one is people being late, like I was late to this program. Maybe you had that was your stimulus, and maybe you reacted in some way to that lateness. Like, doesn't he know that this is supposed to be on right now? Where instead I can just put myself in this moment now. See, there's the past, there's the present, and there's the future. Where we're living is right now, only now. In fact, I was in a class the other evening and we were talking about the only thing that exists are the people in this room. That's the now. It's the only thing that's existing now is us communicating, speaking, listening, responding, churning, deciding. All those things are going on very quickly in your mind right now. Taking a breath is good. So, how can I have self-worth if I don't know myself? And that's this continued observation. So, what is the self? Well, I just know from past experience that people basically only want two things in life. They want peace and they want happiness. Those are the two bedrocks of our desires to experience. Everything else is some combination of those because they think they will bring us, whether it's a new job or a relationship or a promotion or anything of that nature. It's to give us either peace or happiness. And so we're constantly in search of that. And the mind's working, working, working to experience those. And if it doesn't experience those things, it moves on to the next thought. And then if it doesn't experience, it moves on to the next thought and the next thought and the next thought. There's a lot of thoughts. You know, I heard it anecdotally, I heard that we have about 30,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot of thoughts. If I slowed those down into just half of that, what would the reaction be? What would the response be? What would my condition be? Does 30,000 thoughts seem happy or peaceful? Or does it seem other than that? I would say other. So I find that the more pleasure I'm having with a thought, the longer I stay with it. So we stay with the thoughts and the feelings that we enjoy, and the ones that we don't, we want to move on to the next one. So this whole idea of self-worth starts with this very simple exercise of just starting to observe myself. You know, whatever stimulus is coming into me, let me choose how to respond to it instead of reacting out of a knee-jerk way that I've always been doing all along. So we do have to nurture a few inner qualities outside of the observation. And by this observation, it's a kind observation. It's a silent observation. You know, My life is like a drama that's on stage, and all these scenes are happening, bing, 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 bing. But what I suggest is to view it from the last row of the balcony. You know, the characters that are on stage might be experiencing joy, torment, tragedy, comedy, whatever they're experiencing. But the person that's in the last row of the balcony has paid for the seat. They're enjoying the process. They're watching from a place of safety, a perspective distant enough that they're not involved into the visceral feelings of the moment. And this is one of the qualities that I find that I like to work on myself in order to have self-worth. In fact, just having that ability to detach myself some distance away from the event that's happening will automatically give me self-worth because I'm doing something proactive in order to deal with the situation that's not a reaction, that someone says something to me and then I need to say something to them as a justice, as a way of getting even. And then it's now I'm playing this emotional tennis with somebody. And it, as you know from your own experience, nobody feels good. But I will feel good if I find myself not being able to react. In fact, it's even better that I don't even have to overcome it if I don't even recognize it. That would be the ultimate, as I don't even realize I'm being insulted or something like that. So, perspective, step number one in knowing the self so that I can get self-esteem. In order to have self-esteem, I need to know the self. In order to have self-worth, I have to know the what's on the inside of myself. And that's what takes this time of stop. In fact, I often use this in talks here, is that, at the end of the sentence, the grammatical punctuation we call is a period, but you call it a full stop. And that's a perfect word. It's just a point. It's a full stop. I'm just putting an end to it. I'm stopping for a moment rather than a comma, rather than dot, 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 semicolon, exclamation mark, or probably the most damaging of all, the question mark, which continues more and more questions. So I stop, take a minute, take a breath, let it out. There's space. There's space in everything that we do. Even if I was going to a court case that was a big and life-changing event, and I'm getting out of the car and I see a butterfly on the pavement, that's a space that I could pick up the butterfly and let it go. So I've given myself self-worth. I've given myself a little vacation. So I'm not continually following the stream of thought of the strong emotion that's causing me anxiety or stress. Okay, that would be the opposite of self-worth, is that my anxiety starts me to look for answers on the outside. And especially in a time where we live in right now, where time is moving and changing faster than ever before in history. It really is. I just heard the other day that today's supercomputers, that if they were given a problem and they figured out it would take them several thousand years to come up with the answer. But a new type of computer has been invented called a quantum computer that was able to come up with an answer in 5 days. So the difference of 5 days to thousands of years, that's how fast things are moving. The smartphone only came out less than 20 years ago. Here we are. connecting across oceans easily. It's normal. See, and then even not my self-worth becomes so that I become stable. And I see that every event that happens, no matter how challenging or difficult it may be, it also has benefit in it. Where did Zoom come from? Did anyone hear of Zoom before the pandemic? I didn't. So out of that came this ability to communicate far away. So it's not the technology that's causing the stress. It's my adaptability to it. And so then I go back to this thing. Here's the stimulus. The technology is very fast. Things are moving very fast. What do I do? What do I do? I'm used to the old way. I come from a time of landlines. People have no idea what a landline is anymore. So in order to maintain my self-esteem, I have to maintain enough relevance to the time that I can keep my balance as things are changing. And this necessitates self-worth, observing myself that I am, I am, I was, I will be. Now, what's the difference between now and eternal? There's no difference. It's the same thing. The future is whatever it is. Past is gone. Here we are in the now. You could think of that's the same thing as the space between stimulus and response. Stimulus, the past, response, the future. In between, here I am, quiet, observing, not attached to the event. Kind, entertained, seeing it from a distance. Now, if I practice this quiet time, and I really advise that everyone practice it as a way of living, you know, waking up in the morning, give yourself a bit of quiet time. Got a busy life, got children, wake up 10 minutes before everyone else. Take a bit of quiet time. It's something that I find that I have to do every day. Before I go to bed, take a little bit of quiet time. And then throughout the day, finding those moments. I don't have to make special moments. At the stoplight, brushing my teeth, waiting in line while the phone is not being answered. Taking these little moments to recognize that this is the space in between. This is one of those spaces between stimulus and response that I could put myself into and start to observe these qualities that are in me. And that's what will happen. I guarantee you, if you practice this, that's what will happen, is because whatever innate qualities are within will come out because that quiet time nurtures them. So I become more effective in my life too. As I'm watching a situation and I'm pausing to observe it, I begin to discern how, and then in that discerning, that kind of dispassionate discerning of looking at a situation, answers can come to me. Or if I'm just reacting all the time, the way that it happens all the time, I continue to have the same emotional traits that I've always had, even the ones that in my afterwards I think, well, I really shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have thought like that. But if I hadn't set myself up by finding a methodology to change, a methodology to find this self-acceptance, it starts there maybe. Self-acceptance, self-worth, self-esteem, self-love. All these things are predicated upon the previous one. It's not hard. It's just take a moment. You see it everywhere. before I came here, I saw something in a garden happening with birds, and a hummingbird came out. It was a wonderful moment too. If I was kind of caught up in thinking about something else, I would have missed that moment. And that moment strengthens me by finding that moment, by creating space always in between. But in reality, another quality that we really need to, in this process of self-love and self-acceptance, to make this change from reacting to responding. Yes, I can detach and perceive. Yes, I can discern, and I can make a decision. But this is one of the key moments. It takes courage. It takes courage to make a decision. And so just a tiny bit of courage. Maybe it's the courage to act, but perhaps even more often than not, the courage not to. Because I don't know about you, but the most influential thing in life, I find to be, is relationships. And so we're not reacting to the world at large. We're not really reacting to the weather, even the condition of our own body. But we are influenced so greatly by the quality of our relationships and those who are around us. And how do I want those to be? So, in order to be approved of, maybe I need to approve of others. And I have found a very, very simple method of approval, and it's simply listening. This is an easy how-to. Instead of waiting for the other person to finish what they're saying so you can tell them what you think, just quietly listen. I've found out that people aren't looking for answers. They just want to be heard. Just taking that moment. And in that, when you create, I've found that I've done a lot of teaching all through life. And what I've found that this helps create an atmosphere of security, of trust. And learning cannot really even take place until the atmosphere, the environment has enough trust in the people who are in it that they can start to explore what's on the inside, because we're all so used to protecting ourselves from being hurt because we have to. So just by making this one simple thing of someone says something, let me take a moment and consider what they're thinking and then respond to what they're saying. Or perhaps they're not finished with what it is that they're trying to say. It's just the thing. So I discern that I should be quiet a little bit longer and listen a little bit more. And then I guarantee you get more and more approval. I tried an experiment one time where I said, okay, for a month in any conversation, I'm not going to say anything. I'm only going to listen. I might say, yeah, like that. And I'm very curious to see how that goes. And my findings, my hypothesis turned out to be absolutely correct, that no one really noticed that I didn't say anything or was listening. And what one person really highlighted for me after this conversation of me listening and her talking, she said to me, I just want to thank you so much. You're like the best conversationalist I've ever spoken with. It was kind of funny, but it's also true that in being heard is so important. And that's what we're seeking in approval, is that being heard, having value. It gives me a sense of well-being, a sense of self-worth. So part of the process of experiencing that is sharing that by giving that. just a moment. So a very easy one. Increase your power of listening as a means to find additional self-worth for yourself. Because even in like this talk, the words will soon be gone, and uh, won't even hang on to it. But what will remain was whatever feeling you have from the speaker, and you choose yourself. Either the vibrations coming were beneficial or nonsensical, or whatever they were. It's communicating. There's all that communication going on. So quiet time in between. Just stop. Put a pause. Stop seems even sometimes rough. Put a pause before you respond. And then in order to choose a response, it takes time. I might not make the right choice right away. There's the old story. A man was walking down the street and he stepped in the hole. The next day he's walking down the street and he stepped in the hole. The third day he's walking down the street and he stepped in the hole. The fourth day he's walking down the street, says, he stepped in the hole. The fifth day he's walking down the street. I know there's a hole around here somewhere. He stepped in the hole. And finally, after many, many days of walking that same path, he said, oh, the hole's right there. And he makes a little step aside to avoid it. But it didn't come right away. Maybe it took a dozen days before he realized. So the success doesn't come right away. So that's maybe another skill that we need to have is tolerance. Not just tolerance of others, which we feel you probably, if you're like me, you feel like you use all the time. So I'm overusing tolerance. But I'm thinking, it's more of tolerance for myself while I'm in the process of change. I'm tolerating myself while I'm in the process of change because it doesn't come right away. It takes time. I didn't get this way overnight. It's my whole past has created me to what I am. And so I'm all wound up in a certain way. And so this unwinding is going to take some time. I have to be patient. I have to trust. And that's where self-esteem comes in. Self-esteem allows me the trust that, yes, I'm up to whatever task comes in because I really believe in myself. I have these skills. Other people may not even realize it. And I don't have any proof up until today, but I feel it in my bones that I can do this. And this is the type of self-esteem that I'm talking about. It's one that allows me to actually change myself, to transform myself. You can call that an enlightenment. See, enlightenment is not the end of the process. Enlightenment is when you get the idea that, oh, yes, this can be done. And now I have to go through this process of not stepping in the same hole over and over again. So I do need perspective, and that takes taking a pause. This continued pausing gives me a better vision, a better quality vision to see things from a better perspective. See, the person watching the man step in the hole, maybe I could add to the story. There's someone on the third floor of a building watching with amusement, and the man goes through this process. But that person knows the hole is there and they never step in the hole because they have a perspective from which to see that hole there. So now I apply that to myself. That's why I take these moments. That's why these little timeouts to perceive, to see, and then discern, then decide to make a different decision or If it's working, maybe not. Or if it's not time yet, I realize it's not time yet for that to change. But that knowing that it's not yet time, like if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're impatient for the sun to come up, well, you're going to be impatient for a long time because it's not time for the sun to come up. The sun comes up at dawn. That's when it comes up. So between now and then, while I'm still in a little darkness, let me just stop myself and understand that it's not yet, the sun is not yet time to come up. It's really a simple story, but it really is that simple. And by simple, I don't mean easy, because it's not necessarily easy. It's just simple. Simple to understand, simple to do. Anyone can do it with the right amount of understanding, the right perspective, maybe a little bit of tolerance, not too much, but maybe some courage. The courage to make a different choice than I'm used to making. Because what's courageous to me, someone else just does as a way of life. It's okay to be afraid. Without fear, there is no courage. And courage is when you're shaking in your boots and you're moving forward anyway, because you realize the value of continuing to move forward. Like if you're walking across a busy street, you say, well, it's too busy. Let me go back and do it again. You're defeating the purpose. It's better to keep going. And you're just making it more difficult for yourself, and you're teaching yourself giving up and failure. It's okay. It's okay to be afraid. That's where trust comes in again. And trust is not really possible unless I'm clinging to someone else. And maybe this is why we find authoritarian figures throughout the world at this time coming more into prominence, because their decisiveness makes people want to give their trust to them, because they're not feeling it in themselves. They haven't figured that out yet. So someone's going to do it for me. Someone understands my grievances. Someone is on my side, and we'll let them be in charge. And we know how that goes. So instead, I invite you to take this path of taking these moments between stimulus and response, and that quiet space. The most beneficial thing about that quiet space in between is I'm getting to know myself. I'm spending time instead of just running to and fro. It will improve my ability to listen to others, which will add to my sense of feeling self-approval. I like one of the things that Artie put in the lead into this was I oftentimes sacrifice my authenticity for approval. And that's a shame that we do that. But it doesn't have to stay. It doesn't matter if I've done it up until now. It's perfectly okay, because the greatest thing is the realization. The greatest thing is the realization. I can change the way things are just by a little tuning. And this isn't on the outside. This isn't some false thing. You don't need a book. It's not someone's teaching. It's in you, it's in me, it's in all of us, this ability. We're thinking beings. We have a mind, we have an intellect. We can decide. We can discern. It's what we're doing anyway. So what I do is I just alter the way that I do these things. Let's take a moment right now. Wherever you are, realign yourself the way you're sitting so that you're comfortable, but at the same time alert. So that's a nice combination. Comfortable and alert. See, comfortable without being alert is turns into sleep. And alert without comfort can be anxious. So I'm comfortable yet alert. And then maybe a couple deep breaths. I find that breath is very important. It slows everything down. It's the way that the outside world can come onto the inside world. You could think of even going with the theme, the inhale, it's a stimulus. And then I can pause the breath in between and observe, how does it feel? Then exhale is the response. The response might be letting go. I repeat, inhale, pause. How do I feel right now? What's going on inside the body? Release, exhale. One more. Inhale, pause, feel, exhale. And just like that, the atmosphere changes. Just like that, the atmosphere changes. Like I said, you don't have to go to an expensive seminar. You don't have to sit in a certain position. You don't have to wear certain clothes. Because all the things that you need to work with are your faculties of mind. I can think, I can discern, I can decide. There's this gym list comes, I can see, I perceive, I discern how I want to approach or respond to that action or non-action or condition or anything, and then decide. The more that I do that, the more that that becomes commonplace in my behavior and in my thought process, the less I have to utilize courage. It just becomes normal. See, it even takes a certain amount of courage to change a habit, to convince yourself that you'd like to do something. This is why the so-called New Year's resolutions never work. Well, let alone being maybe too lofty, they're not practical, is that I don't have the skill set in order to be successful right away. And if I'm not successful right away, I give up because I don't realize how many steps it takes. Like in the United States, I was using this example the other day. Here, I'm in South Florida, which is one corner, and then Seattle would be the opposite corner of the continent. We're going to walk to Seattle. Well, it's a long walk. It doesn't take, it takes a long time to get there, but it doesn't take long to get started. And there's a lot of steps involved. So if I'm going to make such a lofty trek, I have to prepare myself for how long that process is. And it's better if I know everything that's included. So I'll pack properly. I'll have the right type of shoes. I have the right type of nutrition. I'll do all these things and I'll learn as I go. Because no matter how much I'm planning, the actual journey is different than the plan. Even people who are take spiritual paths, that's like the same type of thing. Even though I love the journey and I want to get to the destination, I'm determined to get to the destination. Actually walking the path is so much different than what I thought the path was. And then you learn to get to know yourself and you develop other virtues like humility. You get plenty of chance to learn humility, patience, understanding, compassion. These are all tools or guides that help me on that journey. So, stimulus, response, me in between is the self. The more self-worth I have, the greater the chances are that I'm going to have a successful outcome or get the type of I'll have the reaction from my response that I'd like to, and that in turn is my approval. And the best part of all is all along I've been authentic with myself, so I haven't had to do anything at all different than myself. I didn't have to praise someone else. I didn't have to conform. I didn't have to join. I can just be myself. What more needs to be said? I don't know if you do a question and answer. Artie, do you have a question
We,
and answer period?
yes, we do normally, but there's none come through so far. So I think people are digesting what you're saying, what you've shared, and are exploring that, and will possibly come up with questions in the moment.
That's everything is okay. Everything, see, everything, that's all part of this process. Well, how about you? How are you?
I'm very well, and I have to ask you, where there has been a habit of needing approval. You've talked about having a little bit of space between, but when it's a gut reaction, is there something you can do so that you know, but the gut reaction's already happened and the horse is out of the stall, so to
That's
speak.
true.
So how,
And so it's like, when you realize that you're stepping in the hole after you've already taken the step and your foot's going to go down into that and you're going to have that experience. And so, what I found for myself is, especially if it's in relationship to someone, and maybe my gut reaction was to respond to another person in a way that was much more rough than was necessary, I will immediately say, you know what? I just realized that was a lot rougher than it needed to be. And I'm sorry for that. You know, and it doesn't even matter what their response is. I've cleaned my plate and that just takes the weight off me. And I also understand that, well, I'm not that strong yet. I didn't realize it was so difficult. And so that's part of the process too. I think it's a necessary part of the process to go through the gut reaction and to even have the response. And then we get to work with these qualities of forgetting and forgiving, you know.
mm, that's
As you
really,
know, as you know,
yeah, that's
right?
very interesting because you're taking responsibility.
And
Mm,
it's not as hard as I had thought it was.
mm,
I, we tend to, I don't know, I can't say we, I tended to shy away because I thought it would make me look bad. Well, this is an example I use. Say that someone came up to you, Artie, someone you've known for a long time, and they said, Artie, I want to tell you something that all these years you were right about this, and I was wrong, and I've come to understand it. Do you think you could forgive me? What's your response going to be to that person? Your heart's going to gush out toward them. So
Mm,
the reason that we don't do that is we're afraid the way of losing the approval of the way it will make us look. But instead, my forthrightness, my transparency caused so much heartfelt feelings in that other being that they love me in a way that they never did before,
mm,
just by that. And I've experienced this, and so I've really seen the power of it. And so I recognize that it's only scary at the moment because you don't know what it is. And of course, this is why your subject here is really better than I had realized, that it's my lack of self-approval that doesn't allow me to
mm,
behave in such a way that will change my relationships instantly.
mm. And actually, in turning around and saying that to someone, you've been trying to tell me this for ages, and I just didn't hear you.
Yeah,
But I get it. It's actually turning around and showing appreciation,
oh, really, it is.
and I guess it's another way of saying not just that it's a thank you for believing in me. Because people who don't believe bet that you could do better are never going to
Yes,
bother with you.
I know.
Mm,
And we carry that burden and we even identify with their vision
mm,
of us. And so we never get to be who we could fully be. And then I've realized that I don't want to be a part of that dynamic. I don't want to be the cause for someone. Maybe my vision could have changed their their path just by the way I responded to them. And I don't want that as part of my epitaph.
mm.
I'd rather to be not even seen than to harm someone like that. So it's like the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So powerful that. Okay, questions have come in, and there's two boss questions almost, or meeting business questions. Um, how do you respond in a business setting when meeting people who want instant answers? So that's one, and I'm putting them together because we've only got 2 minutes left. So the second question is, how do you respond to somebody when they've hurt you and they haven't apologized, particularly if they're your boss? So there's a lot of anxiety involved in that.
Okay. Number one is I reckon, you know what? To the first one, I don't have an instant answer for that, but I'm so glad you posed it to me. And I'm going to do my very best to work on that. Because sometimes you don't, it's just reality. You don't have instant answers, but you can. I try to be transparent as possible, as transparent as the situation allows. I don't want to be transparent to the point the person doesn't want to know. So it's not that I tell everything. It's that I don't have any secrets about what it is. There's nothing that I'm doing that is subterfuge. And so back to the second question, that's just what I'm talking about. This whole thing is about is the stimulus is the insult. In between, before I and being hurt is my reaction. So the only thing that can change is can I say anything to that person? I don't know if I can say anything to that person. So then my choice is more on the pause thing. How can I change my response? Is there some way that I can avoid feeling insulted? Is it about that person? Maybe they're the boss that loses their temper all the time. It's not even personal. That's just the way they are. They don't even know they're doing it. Or maybe they're trying to hurt me. And so then they're succeeding. And so then winning that battle would be not reacting. Whatever the cause is, I have that time in between to discern, and all situations are different. Sometimes it's act, sometimes it's not act.
Mm. Yeah, interesting. There's a lot of fear when
You
we,
know, we all experience that. And that's where the courage comes in, is the courage is in changing my response and changing my reaction. Okay, I'm sure we must be past the time now.
and I'm very sorry because there's a whole pile of questions that have come in now. So I apologize for that to everybody. But we'll get Craig back again and we'll be able to put those questions to him in the near future.
And RT, it's really good to see you again.
I'm delighted to see
Uh,
you.
I'm
Yes.
good to see you again. And you're doing something very good. I appreciate what you're doing. Okay.
Oh, Craig,
Yeah.
from somebody who does so much sustaining communities, that is a lovely thing to
Yeah.
say. So
It's
thank
the
you.
truth. I wanted to share that with you. Okay. Bye
Thank
to all.